Okay, this hasn't gone well. What am I supposed to do with that? I'm gonna have to rewind a little bit and tell you how we got to this point, but I'm still holding out some hope that we can fix this. So a little while ago I put out a little short about how you can create effectively infinite basil plants from one shop bought basil plant, and you'll never really need to buy basil from a shop again. This will give you a lifetime supply of basil. If you're a fan of basil but you don't like buying supermarket basil plants, buy one supermarket basil plant. Take it out of the pot because it'll be completely pot bound and it'll die if you don't take it out of the original pot. Split it so that you've got 1 to 2 plants in each new pot. Put them on a sunny windowsill and honestly you'll never buy supermarket basil again. But basil does have a shelf life, and I mean these have done pretty well. This was from one single supermarket basil plant at least 6 months ago, maybe longer than that. So they've done pretty well, but they do eventually lose their leaves and they'll bolt and try to go to seed and things like that. And at that point, you really need to start again. So to prevent your basil plants from completely dying or to try and give them a new lease of life, all we're gonna do is take cuttings from all of these and we'll start off a new batch from scratch. Get rid of these old plants. Whatever's left will either dry out or will turn into maybe a pesto or something like that. But these are now end of life. So it's time for them to go to basil heaven. But in the meantime, let's take some cuttings and sort this out. All I'm gonna do is a couple of glasses of water. You want quite deep glasses because the roots will start growing and you want somewhere for the roots to actually go while they're in the glass. And then I'm just going to take a mix of cuttings. I'm hoping I'm not going to be too late because, as I say, it's already trying to bolt, but I'll maybe take some from a little bit lower down and hope for the best. We'll go for this bunch kind of here. See, that's already got quite a thick stem on it, but we'll see how it does. I'm going to remove these lower leaves. Should be okay. I'll take a couple more while I'm over here. As I say, the whole plant's going to go a journey, so we'll take, I want some of these kind of younger ones. We'll take this one here. And I don't want too many leaves on it. Should be all right. As I say, I might have left this a little bit late. Got on these plants, see if there's anything better. That one's pretty much done, but what about this one? That might go. I think I'll just do 6 and hopefully that'll be enough. I did a couple of extra ones just for luck, so I've done 8 cuttings altogether, so they should be okay. We'll see how they go. I've kept the best leaves on the plant, but you don't want to keep too many leaves, but we'll just shove them in the water. I'm doing 4 in each glass. You ideally don't want too many in each glass because the roots tend to all kind of get tangled with each other, but we'll try that and we'll see how it goes. And then we'll just pop those on the windowsill and we shall check back in 1 to 2 weeks. We'll see if we get some roots on that. And then meanwhile, these plants have served us well, but it's time for them to do a journey. So we've got all of this here and we've got this massive pile as well. So what I'm going to do is just remove some of the leaves from this and we'll dry them out. The smell is incredible, by the way. If you like the smell of basil, you'll like this job. I don't like keeping kind of diseased bits like that, so I tend to get rid of it. And then all I do is pop them on a plate. That's all basil that's already dried, by the way. But there's only so much you can actually get through. It's just insane quantities of basil. And we'll just keep that in a warm, dry place out in the road. Mrs. Mac's going to turn what's left into a gorgeous pesto that she makes, and in the meantime, everything else can go on the compost heap. I'll wash out all the pots, just ready for the next batch, but be a little while until we're ready to put them out. And now we just need to wait. And pretty much exactly 3 weeks later, we have roots. So one plant didn't make it, but the rest seem to have done all right, although I'm sure one of them in here, it's still alive, but it doesn't seem to have any roots on it. It'll be a bit easier once I've got all of the rooty plants out of there to see what's going on, but if we haven't got any roots on one of them, we can maybe leave it. We might not even need that one, to be honest. And then I've prepared a couple of 6-inch pots here with some compost. This just has some gravel in the bottom, and then bog standard multi-purpose compost is all I'm using here. And then literally all I'm going to do is pot them out, or plant them out, and I'm going to go for 3 per pot. Now, the only trouble is if you've grown them like this, sometimes the roots can get a little bit tangled up. But this is all looking good and ready to go. So, nice and delicately, just pop that in. So on the off chance that any of those don't take, I'm half tempted to keep this one and see if it ever does grow roots, but there's no sign of anything coming out of it yet. But the plant's not dead yet, so we might as well just leave it until it actually either produces roots or carks it. And we'll just keep it as kind of a spare. But assuming those other 6 plants take, we can just bin this. And that is basically it. We'll just pop them on a sunny windowsill, and at some point we will get a proper kind of pot for them. But for the minute, I'll just leave them on these plates just to catch any water. And even though the compost is quite damp, I am going to give them a tiny bit of water just to help them get started. But not too much. We're in kind of autumn time, so the compost shouldn't dry out too much, so I don't really want it going all soggy and mouldy, but yeah, that should be good. We'll report back and see how they're doing in a couple of weeks. Well, I'll be honest, this isn't going well. Out of the 8, was it 8 basil plants that we planted? Well, Look at the state. Well, three of these have completely died to the point that one of them seems to have completely vanished. I'm sure I planted 4 in here. We've got this one here that can barely be classed as being alive. Those are obviously completely dead. That one as well. At least that one still had some roots on it, but that other one had absolutely nothing. Is it worth even persevering with that? I'm not sure. And then in our other pot, we've got these 2, which are still hanging on in there, but obviously we've got this one that's completely dead as well. On the plus side, that one that didn't grow any roots, all I did was chop the bottom off it and shove it in a glass of water again. And that has grown some roots, but not enough to plant it out. I mean, you need a much more substantial root system than that before putting it anywhere near soil. And that's been sitting in there for the best part of a month now. So I think we'll give up on that one as well. But I'm a little bit at a loss as to what to do here, to the point that I've even bought another supermarket basil plant, and even that seems to be dying. So this is only a 3-day-old plant, and it's not doing very well at all. But in the interests of this not being a complete waste of time, I'm going to try splitting up this plant and planting it out into these pots, because we've already got the pots. I might as well make use of them. And we'll see whether it's the cuttings to blame, or the compost, or the plant, or the time of year, or whatever. I'm not sure. I mean, the windowsill is colder than is ideal. I think you should probably be around maybe 20, 21 degrees for new cuttings to take. But it's not so cold that the plants should be instantly dying. I think 5 degrees is kind of the minimum for basil plants. And as you can see, we're at kind of, 18, 19 degrees on the windowsill. So I'm really at a little bit of a loss as to what's causing this, because I was really trying to avoid buying any more supermarket basil. That was kind of the whole point of this video. But as I say, either it's too cold on that windowsill, it could potentially be a problem with the compost for some reason. It could also be that the cuttings that we took, maybe they weren't developed enough to plant out yet. I mean, they had much, much bigger root systems than this, and I've planted out basil cuttings in the past with root systems similar to that and never had a problem with them. But I guess it could be that the cuttings just weren't ready yet. Or it could just be a case that the donor plant was too old and it was too late to take cuttings from that plant. Not entirely sure. So what I'm going to do, as I say, I'm going to split this new supermarket basil, which cost me 90 pence. I was tempted to shift this plant over into this pot, and then we know that everything in that pot is cuttings, whereas everything in this pot is from the supermarket basil. But I think if I repot what's left of that, I think it'll kill it. So I'm just going to leave that there, and we'll split out this supermarket 90 pence plant, which, as I say, is already dying. But that's pretty normal for supermarket basil, because, I mean, you can see how pot-bound that is. It's absolutely crazy. And you can see how many plants are in there. It's just far, far, far too many plants. I mean, how many have we got? There's over 20 plants in that. It's just crazy. So we'll try and tease those out a little bit. We'll get that nice big one. I'm expecting some of these are gonna die. Like, that's already pretty much dead. No point in keeping that little one, but we'll keep those 2. We'll plant that out in a second. What else have we got? These are all terrible, really. Is there anything worth keeping there? Tiny little thing. I'm not going to keep that. That one's not too bad. That's rubbish. Okay, we'll try those. The rest of that is no use. So, the same as before. In fact, you know what I am going to do? Let's take some of this compost from the old, from the supermarket pot. I'm sure it's not going to do it any harm. I'm going to shove these bigger ones in the pot with the successful cuttings, mainly because I haven't really got any more space in that pot, but I am actually going to stake this one because he's trying to fall over and it's probably the best plant of the lot, so let's just see what happens, I guess. And then, on the off chance that the problem is that the windowsill is simply too cold, I think what I'm going to try is keeping them over here. The radiator's at the bottom there, and maybe a bit of extra heat will help. So I'm going to pop one here, and I don't want to go directly on top of the radiator. I think that's asking for trouble, but I think I might go for one on this shelf. So I need to remember that this one has the 2 original cuttings and the bigger plant out from the supermarket basil in, and this one has all splits from the supermarket basil plus that remaining cutting that really didn't look very clever at all. I'm going to leave this temperature monitor on the windowsill to see how cold this windowsill gets overnight, because it could be that we are getting into danger territory overnight when the central heating's turned down. So we'll report back on that. I'll give these a little bit of water, but not too much. Not until we know that they're definitely kind of actively growing. Yeah, fingers crossed. I think we'll know in a couple of days whether or not this is going to work. Right, we're another few days down the line, and I think we're going to have to call it a day on this little experiment. I give up. I cannot get basil to grow in our house over winter time, or at least it's really, really struggling. And I think I know what the problem is, and I'll tell you in a minute, but I'll just show you these up close. So if I remember rightly, this was an original cutting. I don't know which one it is. I think that was one of the original cuttings. But as you can see, I mean, they're in a right state. They are ready for the bin. The remaining ones were all taken from that supermarket basil plant as well. And I'm quite pleased that they've died, because it means it's not the cuttings to blame. Everything is dying. So yeah, they can go a journey, absolutely no use. And on the plus side, these ones have done a little bit better. So what we've got here are the original 2 cuttings that I took at the front, and they're still holding on to life just. And we've got the plants that we planted out from the supermarket basil at the back here. I mean, none of them are looking particularly healthy. I mean, look at this. We've got like brown spots have appeared on the leaves of one of the plants that were planted out from the supermarket basil. The other one, the taller plant, it's doing all right, but it's so leggy. I mean, really, this should be cut down. But if I cut this down, we're only left with one reasonably big leaf, which has already got like brown spots appearing on it. And then there's nothing else. So we can't really cut this off. There'll be nothing left of the plant. So yeah, there we go. Our basil experiment for trying to grow basil over the winter in a fairly typical UK property has kind of failed. What I am going to do with the remaining plant that's still holding on to a little bit of life is I'm just going to leave it on the windowsill. Now, the windowsill did get down to, I think, about 17.4 degrees overnight, which is to be expected really, because we've got the central heating set to not allow the house to go any lower than 17 degrees overnight. And then the way the central heating works is that it gradually warms the house up, ready for the house being at, I think, 20.5 degrees. We'll have it set through the day. So it does kind of gradually come down to that 17.4, and then it doesn't stay at that temperature for very long, and then it heats back up to the 20-21 degrees mark, which in itself isn't enough to kill the basil. I mean, it's not going to be particularly happy. I think really you want it closer to 20-21 degrees all the time, and fairly consistently as well. But I think the bigger problem we've got You can see out the window there, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And look at how dark it is. It's just not getting enough light. I think that is the fundamental issue that we've got here. Trying to grow basil in the winter time. I mean, you could use a grow light, but by the time you've bought a grow light and the expense of running the grow light, I don't think it's really economically viable. We shall see. At some point down the line, I might buy a grow light and see what difference it makes. But as I say, it's currently 2:36 in the afternoon and it's just utterly miserable outside. There is no sunlight hitting this windowsill at all in wintertime. I mean, this is kind of a north-facing window anyway, so even in the summertime it doesn't get very much sun, but it gets a little bit, and basil plants have always done really well on this windowsill over summer, but in the wintertime in northeast England, it just can't be done without a grow light, I don't think. So folks, let me know what you think. If you've successfully managed to grow basil over the winter time in the UK without using grow lights and things like that, please post down in the comments below. We are in the northeast of England and it is colder up here, and it's been a pretty miserable start to the winter as well, with a lot of rain. We've had snow as well, which has scuppered a lot of other projects that I've been wanting to get on with. But as I say, I think we've tried our best here and it's time for this to go a journey. We'll see if that remaining plant on the windowsill can hold on to life long enough to last until spring, and then hopefully that'll grow big enough that we can take some cuttings from that and start all over again. But as I say, I'd love to hear your experiences with growing basil down in the comments below, because we are absolute amateurs when it comes to all of this sort of stuff. It's all largely experimentation, and hopefully we can all kind of learn from each other. For now folks, as per usual, look after each other, be nice to one another. We shall see you next time. Tatty bye.